The amber glow of that grocery store parking lot cast long shadows across Ethan Winter's face as he loaded bags into his trunk. Rain tapped gently against his jacket. October in Ohio bringing its characteristic chill. He paused, keys in hand, eyes drawn to the blue sedan parked in the far corner. The same car had been there 12 hours earlier when he dropped Lily at school. Something pulled him toward it, that quiet voice we often ignore. The windows were fogged from the inside, a sign of life. His knuckles rapped softly against the glass. The window lowered just enough to reveal a woman's face. Mid-30s, auburn hair, and eyes that had clearly seen better days. The purple crescent beneath her right eye told a story he wasn't prepared to hear. "Are you okay?" Ethan asked, though the answer was painfully obvious. Behind her, a small boy, no older than his own daughter, clutched a tattered dinosaur toy, watching with eyes too old for his 5 years. What would you do if fate placed someone's broken life directly in your path? Would you walk away, pretend you hadn't seen? Or would you make a choice that might forever alter the course of multiple lives? 20 minutes later, Ethan Winters, a high school woodshop teacher with barely enough to support himself and his daughter, led two strangers into his home, unaware that the small boy with the dinosaur toy carried an inheritance worth millions, and a story that would challenge everything Ethan thought he knew about wealth, family, and belonging. If you believe one moment can change everything, hit subscribe now for more life-changing tales that remind us how thin the line is between strangers and family. Ethan Winters hadn't started out planning to be both mother and father to 7-year-old Lily. Life had other ideas. The alarm buzzed at 5:45 a.m., same as every weekday for the past 3 years. Ethan's hand found the familiar chip in the nightstand, a reminder of the day Lily had tried to help by moving furniture while he was grading projects. The memory made him smile despite the early hour. "Lilybug," he called softly, padding down the narrow hallway of their 3-bedroom craftsman house. "Time for Pancake Tuesday." Their morning routine flowed with the precision of a well-rehearsed dance. Lily knew which drawer held the measuring cups. Ethan knew exactly how many blueberries would make her smile without overwhelming the batter. These small rituals anchored them both. "Dad, can you French braid today?" "Mia said my regular braids look babyish," Lily announced, mouth full of pancake. "Bold of you to assume I've mastered French braids," Ethan laughed. But his phone was already open to the tutorial video he'd been practicing with at night after she went to bed. The walls of their home told Ethan's story better than words could. Hand-built bookshelves lined the living room, each one a different wood species. Maple, cherry, oak, all harvested, milled, and finished by his hands. The coffee table bore the marks of Lily's early art experiments. The dining table, his first major project after Naomi died, had 6 chairs, though only 2 were ever used. Photographs tracked time's passage. Naomi and Ethan on their wedding day, pregnant Naomi glowing beside a half-built crib, a noticeably thinner Naomi holding newborn Lily. The last family photo taken 3 months before leukemia stole her away. After dropping Lily at school, Ethan drove his 10-year-old truck to Mapleton High. The woodshop smelled of sawdust and possibility, his classroom for 15 years now. Students filtered in for first period, a mix of future engineers and kids just fulfilling an elective requirement. "Mr. Winters, my drawer joints keep splitting," Miguel complained, holding up his latest attempt. "Patience, Miguel. Wood has its own timeline," Ethan replied, guiding the boy's hands through the proper technique. "Force it, and it breaks. Respect it, and it transforms into exactly what it's meant to be." His colleagues often joked that Ethan could turn any woodworking challenge into a life lesson. They weren't wrong. Lunchtime found him in the teacher's lounge, brown bag containing the sandwich Lily had insisted on making him. Peanut butter with too much jelly, crust meticulously removed. "Ethan, you coming to happy hour Friday?" Lisa Chen from English asked. "The new history teacher will be there. She's single." The gentle emphasis on single wasn't subtle. "Can't. Lily has her dance recital," he answered, the familiar excuse rolling easily off his tongue. The truth that he wasn't ready, might never be ready, remained unspoken. Evening brought him to Mrs. Hoffman's house next door to collect Lily. The 78-year-old widow had become their after-school solution when childcare proved too expensive on a teacher's salary. She finished her homework and helped me deadhead the mums, Mrs. Hoffman reported, pressing a container of homemade cookies into his hands. She needs a woman's influence, Ethan. Naomi would want you to move forward. Home again, their modest house welcomed them, with creaking floorboards and the faint scent of pine from Ethan's workshop in the converted garage. Dinner, bath time, story time. The evening rhythm soothed them both. After tucking Lily in, Ethan retreated to his workbench, where a half-finished dollhouse awaited Christmas morning. His fingers traced the tiny dormers and miniature staircase. Details most children wouldn't notice, but that mattered to him. Quality mattered. Integrity mattered. The things you couldn't see were often more important than those you could. The contrast between Ethan's life and what was coming couldn't have been more stark. His world measured wealth in different currency, the curve of his daughter's smile, the perfect dovetail joint, the quiet satisfaction of creating something lasting with his hands. His bank account might have been modest, but his life was rich with purpose. What Ethan couldn't possibly know, as he sanded tiny dollhouse shingles that Tuesday night, was how quickly his carefully crafted world would expand, and how the very foundation of what he valued would soon be put to the test by people who measured worth in millions, not memories. The first week passed in a symphony of awkward adjustments. Madeline insisted on sleeping on the couch despite Ethan's protests about the guest room. Theodore spoke only in whispers, his eyes tracking every movement as if cataloging escape routes. Lily, however, approached their new housemates with the straightforward curiosity of a 7-year-old. "Why do you have rainbow bruises?" she asked Madeline over breakfast 3 days after their arrival. Ethan nearly dropped the orange juice. "Lily, that's not... It's okay," Madeline said, her voice soft but steady. "Sometimes people hurt other people when they're angry or scared. That's why Theodore and I needed a safe place for a while." Lily considered this, then pushed her stuffed rabbit toward Theodore. "Hoppy keeps bad dreams away. You can borrow him." That small gesture, a child's unquestioning kindness, cracked something open in the quiet boy. By week's end, Theodore's whispers had evolved into actual sentences, mostly directed at Lily. Evenings found the four of them navigating new routines. Ethan expanded dinner portions, discovered Theodore's aversion to green beans, and learned Madeline could transform leftovers into completely different meals. A talent born of necessity, she later explained. "I need to find work," Madeline announced one night after the children were asleep. "I can't keep—" "There's no rush," Ethan interrupted, passing her a mug of tea. "Get settled first." Her fingers trembled slightly around the mug. "You don't understand. They might be looking for us." "Who might be looking?" Madeline stared into her tea, as if reading prophecies in the leaves. "My son's grandparents. They're influential people. And they're the ones who—" Ethan gestured vaguely toward her face, where the bruises had faded to yellowish shadows. "Not directly." Her laugh held no humor. "They don't dirty their hands personally." Piece by piece, over late-night conversations, Madeline's story emerged. She'd been an executive assistant at a major development company. Her boss, young, charming, from a wealthy family, had pursued her despite the professional boundaries between them. "Maxwell said he loved me," she explained, eyes fixed on some distant point. "When I got pregnant, he promised we'd be a family. Then came the boating accident off Italy. His parents made it clear I wasn't welcome at the funeral." "Theodore's father," Ethan said, understanding dawning. Madeline nodded. "The Carlyles have properties in 36 states and assets worth billions. Theodore is Maxwell's only child. That makes him—" "A problem for them," Ethan finished. "A liability," she corrected, "or an asset. Depends on their mood." During the day, while Ethan taught and Madeline searched for jobs, Mrs. Hoffman watched both children. The elderly woman reported that Theodore and Lily had become inseparable, building elaborate worlds with dinosaurs and dolls together. "That boy needs stability," Mrs. Hoffman told Ethan. "Flinches when I move too quick." But Lily gets him laughing. October melted into November. Madeline secured a receptionist position at a dentist's office, not utilizing her business degree, but offering flexible hours that matched Lily's school schedule. Theodore enrolled in kindergarten, his initial reluctance transforming into tentative enthusiasm. Small revelations continued. Ethan noticed Theodore's clothes, though well-worn, were designer brands. The dinosaur toy he clutched each night bore a limited edition marking. Madeline's handbag, scuffed and faded, was genuine leather with a prestigious label. "The Carlyles gave us a settlement when I agreed to leave town," Madeline explained when Ethan inquired. "It lasted until Theodore needed hospitalization for pneumonia last winter. No health insurance, so the practical side of their arrangement evolved naturally. Madeline insisted on contributing to groceries. Ethan taught her how to fix the temperamental dishwasher. They established a calendar for bathroom schedules and school pickups. The four of them built rhythms together, finding comfort in new routines. Thanksgiving approached. During dinner planning, Lily announced she needed 4 handprint turkeys for the school display, not just 2. "Because Theodore and Madeline are our family now," she stated with absolute certainty. That night, Ethan found Theodore sitting on the back porch steps, clutching his dinosaur and staring at the stars. "Everything okay, buddy?" Ethan asked, settling beside him. Theodore studied him with solemn blue eyes. Eyes that Ethan now recognized matched the Carlisle Properties logo he'd spotted while researching online. "My grandpa has a swimming pool inside his house," Theodore said suddenly. "That's pretty fancy." "But he doesn't have a Lily." Theodore's voice held no resentment, just factual observation. "Or pancakes with faces, or a workbench where I can build stuff." Ethan swallowed the unexpected tightness in his throat. "No, I guess he doesn't. Mom smiles here. At the other houses, she cried a lot." Theodore pulled his knees to his chest. "Is this our home now?" The question, simple yet profound, caught Ethan unprepared. His own daughter's mother was gone forever. This boy's father was equally unreachable. Yet here they were, creating something new from pieces that didn't obviously fit together. "Do you want it to be?" Ethan asked carefully. Theodore nodded, his small face serious. "I like it here. Nobody yells or breaks things, and Lily says I'm her brother now." Ethan gently bumped Theodore's shoulder with his own. "Then yes, this is your home for as long as you want it to be." The boy's smile, rare and transformative, illuminated something Ethan hadn't realized was dark inside him. Neither noticed Madeline watching from the kitchen window, tears streaming silently down her face, nor the black sedan that drove slowly past the house, its occupant photographing their porch conversation. Family isn't always who you're born to. Sometimes it's who God leads you to when you need them most. Comment family below. If you believe the strongest bonds are those we choose, not those decided by DNA. And keep watching to see how Ethan's promise is tested in ways he never imagined possible. December arrived with a gentle snowfall that transformed Mapleton into a winter wonderland. Ethan spent weekends stringing lights along the eaves while Theodore and Lily built lopsided snowmen in the yard. Madeline, who'd received her first full paycheck, insisted on contributing to the holiday preparations, returning from shopping trips with carefully selected gifts hidden in the trunk of her now registered blue sedan. Their makeshift family settled into comfortable patterns that felt increasingly permanent. Theodore had stopped asking if they were staying forever and instead focused on more immediate concerns, like whether Santa would find him at his new address. "I updated him," Ethan assured the boy while they hung stockings, including a new one Ethan had secretly ordered with Theodore's name embroidered across the top. "North Pole mail system is very efficient." The Saturday before Christmas dawned bright and cold. Madeline was teaching Lily how to make her grandmother's gingerbread recipe, the kitchen filled with laughter and the warm scent of spices. Ethan and Theodore occupied the workshop, collaborating on a jewelry box for Lily, Theodore's small hands sanding while Ethan guided him. The knock that changed everything came at precisely 11:17 a.m. "I'll get it," called Madeline. Her voice floated down the hallway, then abruptly cut off. The silence pulled Ethan from the workshop, Theodore trailing behind him. In the front doorway stood an older couple whose appearance screamed wealth in every detail, from the woman's cashmere coat to the man's handmade Italian shoes that probably cost more than Ethan's monthly mortgage. "Grandpa," Theodore whispered, his hand finding Ethan's and squeezing tight. The man, tall with silver-threaded dark hair and Theodore's unmistakable blue eyes, smiled thinly. "Theodore, You've grown. What are you doing here? Madeline's voice had transformed. All warmth evaporated into something brittle and defensive. Perhaps we could continue this conversation inside, the woman suggested, her gaze sweeping critically over the modest porch with its wooden snowflakes Ethan and the children had crafted. It's rather cold. Ethan found his voice. I'm sorry, but who exactly are you? The older man extended his hand with practiced charm. Harrison Carlyle. This is my wife, Victoria. We're Theodore's grandparents. Each syllable carried the weight of authority. And you must be the woodshop teacher who's been housing our grandson. The living room felt suddenly cramped with the addition of the Carlyles. Victoria perched on the edge of the sofa, as if afraid the fabric might contaminate her designer outfit. Harrison remained standing, examining the handcrafted bookshelves with an investor's calculating eye. Theodore had retreated to the kitchen with Lily, who sensed the tension, and quietly offered to show him how to cut gingerbread men. How did you find us? Madeline asked, her arms crossed protectively across her chest. Harrison's smile never reached his eyes. You used Maxwell's credit card for gas 3 weeks ago. An oversight on your part, I assume. What do you want? Ethan asked, moving subtly to position himself between Madeline and the Carlyles. Want? Victoria's laugh tinkled like icicles breaking. We want what any grandparents would want, a relationship with our grandson. After 2 years of pretending he doesn't exist, Madeline's voice shook. Harrison's expression hardened momentarily before smoothing back into practiced neutrality. The situation has evolved. Maxwell's will has cleared probate. I didn't contest the will, Madeline said. I signed your settlement papers. Yes, well, Harrison straightened his already impeccable tie. It appears Maxwell had other ideas we weren't privy to until recently. Victoria opened her designer handbag, extracting an envelope bearing an embossed legal seal. Theodore is named as Maxwell's primary heir. There are trusts, property allocations, and voting shares in the company. He's 5 years old, Ethan heard himself saying, which is precisely why he needs proper guardianship, Harrison replied. Someone equipped to manage his inheritance and prepare him for his future responsibilities. You mean you, Madeline stated flatly, unless you prefer a lengthy court battle. Victoria inspected her manicure with studied casualness, one where your living arrangements would be thoroughly examined. The threat hung in the air between them. Madeline's months of housing instability, the weeks living in the car, her current unorthodox living situation with an unrelated male. How much? Madeline asked, her voice hollow. Harrison named a figure that made Ethan's breath catch. 68 million, conservatively. Could be more depending on market fluctuations and how certain holdings perform. Maxwell was quite thorough. Ethan looked toward the kitchen where Lily was showing Theodore how to use cookie cutters, their heads bent together in concentration, unaware that their world was shifting on its axis. And if Madeline doesn't cooperate? Ethan asked quietly. We have resources she doesn't, Victoria said simply. The best attorneys, child psychologists who will testify about stability requirements, judges who understand the unique needs of children in Theodore's position. Harrison placed a business card on the coffee table. We're staying at the Blackwood Hotel through Wednesday. That gives you time to consider what's best for Theodore. A child with his inheritance needs certain advantages: private schools, social connections, proper guidance. He needs love, Ethan countered. Stability. People who see him as more than a dollar sign. Harrison's smile turned sharp. Admirable sentiment from someone living paycheck to paycheck. Tell me, Mr. Winters, can you provide Theodore with international education? Cultural experiences? The network he'll need to manage his assets when he comes of age? I can provide him with a home where nobody sends people to leave bruises as negotiation tactics, Ethan replied evenly. Victoria gasped theatrically. What an outrageous accusation. Harrison, I won't stay to be insulted. We'll be in touch through our attorneys, Harrison said, his voice cooling several degrees. Think carefully about Theodore's best interests, and yours. The implied threat wasn't subtle. As Ethan showed them out, Harrison paused on the porch. By the way, your property taxes were reassessed last quarter. Significant increase, I understand. Must be difficult on a teacher's salary. The message was clear. We can make things difficult in ways you haven't imagined. After the black Mercedes glided away, Ethan found Madeline standing in the middle of the living room, her fingers pressed against her lips. "They're going to take him," she whispered. "They have the money, the connections." "They'll try," Ethan corrected, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. He took her trembling hands in his. "But they'll have to go through us first." Madeline looked up, hope and fear warring in her expression. "Us? Family protects family," Ethan said simply, "and Theodore is family now." In the kitchen, oblivious to the seismic shift in their lives, Theodore proudly held up a gingerbread man for Lily's inspection. "Look, I made him with a cape because he's a superhero." Through the window, a black sedan remained parked across the street, its occupant documenting everyone who entered or left the Winters residence. The battle for Theodore's future had begun. Christmas came and went beneath a cloud of uncertainty. The gifts were open, the meals shared, but Harrison Carlisle's business card sat on Ethan's kitchen counter like a ticking bomb. "We need legal help," Ethan said the day after Christmas, watching Theodore and Lily build a fort from new blankets and chairs. "Professional help?" Madeline nodded, her eyes never leaving Theodore. "With what money, Ethan? The Carlisles probably spend more on coffee each month than I make at the dentist's office." "I know someone," Ethan replied. "From college, Rebecca Donovan. She's a family law attorney now." The meeting with Rebecca happened New Year's Eve morning in her downtown office. Holiday decorations still hung in the reception area, an incongruous brightness against the gravity of their situation. "The Carlisles have filed for emergency custody," Rebecca explained, reviewing documents on her desk. "They're claiming Madeline is an unfit mother due to unstable housing, employment history, and questionable associations." "Questionable associations?" Ethan repeated. Rebecca met his eyes directly. "That would be you, Ethan, an unrelated male with whom Theodore and his mother are cohabitating." "That's absurd," Madeline protested. "Ethan has given us safety, stability." "The Carlisles will paint it differently," Rebecca interrupted gently. "They'll argue that Theodore belongs with blood relatives who can provide financial security and social advantages." "Can they win?" Ethan asked. Rebecca's hesitation answered before her words did. "They have resources we don't, but we have truth on our side, and documented evidence of their previous rejection of Theodore." "What evidence?" Madeline asked. "The settlement they offered you to disappear, the fact they've never acknowledged Theodore publicly. No birthday cards, no child support, nothing for 2 years." Rebecca leaned forward. "We'll build our case on their sudden interest coinciding with Theodore's inheritance." January brought snow and the first court appearance. The Carlisles arrived with 3 attorneys and a child psychologist. Ethan and Madeline had Rebecca and the truth, a mismatch evident to everyone in the courtroom. The judge, Howard Blackwell, whose country club membership Ethan later discovered was sponsored by a Carlisle subsidiary, scheduled evaluations and home studies. Within weeks, investigators had photographed every corner of Ethan's house, interviewed Lily's teachers, questioned neighbors about comings and goings. February's hearing went badly. The Carlisle team presented a portfolio of Theodore's optimal development plan, private schools, language tutors, cultural experiences. Ethan and Madeline's lawyer emphasized stability, emotional attachments, and Theodore's own preference. The legal bills mounted $5,000, then $12,000. Ethan's savings evaporated. Madeline contributed her entire paycheck, often skipping lunch to save a few dollars. "We need to talk about options," Rebecca said one evening at Ethan's kitchen table. "The next filing alone will cost $8,000. Ethan glanced toward the backyard where Theodore was teaching Lily how to identify constellations, knowledge he'd gleaned from a library book Ethan had checked out. "I'm going to mortgage the house," Ethan said quietly. "Ethan, no," Madeline protested. "This is your home, your security." "It's Theodore's home too," Ethan replied simply. "And Lily would agree with me. Her brother is worth it." The refinancing provided $30,000, enough to continue the fight, but at significant risk. Ethan didn't tell Madeline that the new interest rate meant he'd be paying off the house until he was 72. March brought a devastating blow. Judge Blackwell granted temporary custody to the Carlisles pending the final hearing in June. The court order arrived on a Tuesday morning. By afternoon, black SUVs lined the street outside Ethan's house. "I don't want to go," Theodore sobbed, clinging to Madeline while a court-appointed supervisor looked on impassively. "Please don't make me go." "It's just temporary, sweetheart," Madeline whispered, her own tears falling into his hair. "Just for a little while. We're fighting to bring you home." Lily screamed when she realized what was happening, her small body throwing itself between Theodore and the door. "You can't take my brother! Dad, don't let them!" Ethan knelt, gathering both children in his arms. "Listen to me, both of you. This isn't goodbye. It's just a pause. Theodore, we will never stop fighting for you. Never." "Promise?" Theodore's voice cracked. "Cross my heart," Ethan replied, making the gesture that had become their private ritual. The supervisor checked her watch pointedly. "We need to leave now." Theodore's small backpack, packed with Hoppy the rabbit, his favorite dinosaur, and a photo of the four of them from Christmas, seemed painfully inadequate for what lay ahead. As the SUVs pulled away, Lily collapsed in heartbroken wails that echoed through the suddenly empty house. That night, Ethan found Madeline sitting in Theodore's bedroom, clutching the boy's pajamas. "I should have run," she whispered, "taken him and disappeared." Ethan sat beside her on the small bed with its dinosaur comforter. "Then you'd always be running. This way we fight." "They'll turn him against us," Madeline said, her voice hollow. "They'll buy his love with things we could never afford." "They can't buy what he already knows," Ethan replied, taking her hand. "That real love doesn't come with price tags." The Carlisle estate, a 30-room mansion behind iron gates, became Theodore's prison and palace. His bedroom suite was larger than Ethan's entire first floor. He had a closet full of designer clothes, a private tutor, and a nutrition consultant who prepared meals according to optimal brain development guidelines. What he didn't have was Lily's endless chatter, Madeline's goodnight kisses, or Ethan's corny breakfast jokes. Court-supervised visitations occurred twice weekly at the Carlisle estate, sterile interactions observed by professionals taking notes. Theodore grew quieter with each visit, his responses increasingly guarded. "They're coaching him," Rebecca warned after one particularly stilted exchange. "Classic alienation tactics." April brought the first missed visitation. Theodore was unwell, according to the Carlisle's attorney. Then another. By May, Theodore had developed mysterious anxiety attacks before each scheduled visit. Meanwhile, Lily withdrew at school, her formerly stellar grades slipping. Ethan found her sleeping in Theodore's bed most nights, clutching the dinosaur toy he'd left behind. Madeline moved mechanically through her days, working extra shifts to contribute to the legal fund while researching custody precedents late into the night. The circles under her eyes deepened, her clothes hung loose on her frame. Ethan poured his rage into preparation, spending every free moment documenting their life before the separation. Photo albums, Theodore's kindergarten artwork, videos of the children playing together, building their case for the June hearing. One evening in late May, Ethan's phone rang, an unfamiliar number. "Mr. Winters?" A woman's voice, hushed and nervous. "My name is Grace. I'm Theodore's nanny at the Carlisle house." Ethan's heart stopped. "Is he okay?" "Physically, yes," Grace replied, "but he cries himself to sleep every night. He's stopped eating. The Carlisles, they tell him you've abandoned him, that you only wanted his money." Fury surged through Ethan's veins. "That's a lie." "I know," Grace said softly. "That's why I'm calling. He needs to know you're still fighting for him." "How?" Ethan asked desperately. "They've blocked our visits." "He has a checkup with Dr. Bennett tomorrow at 2 p.m. Mrs. Carlisle never attends medical appointments. Sends me instead." Grace paused. "The office is on Maple Street." The connection ended as abruptly as it had begun. The next day, Ethan waited in the parking lot of Bennett Pediatrics, his heart hammering against his ribs. When Grace emerged holding Theodore's hand, the boy's head down as he shuffled toward the car, Ethan stepped into view. "Theodore," he called softly. The boy's head snapped up, disbelief transforming into wild joy. He broke free from Grace's grasp and ran, launching himself into Ethan's arms with such force that they nearly toppled over. "You didn't forget me." Theodore sobbed against Ethan's neck. Never, Ethan promised fiercely. We're coming to get you home. Cross my heart. For 3 precious minutes, Ethan held him, memorizing the weight of him, the scent of his hair, the sound of his voice. Grace finally approached, regret in her eyes. We have to go, she whispered. If they find out... Theodore clung tighter. Don't let me go back. Just a little longer, buddy, Ethan said, his own voice breaking. The hearing is in 2 weeks, then you'll come home. As Grace led Theodore back to the Carlyle's luxury SUV, the boy turned to look over his shoulder. The devastation in his eyes would haunt Ethan's dreams. This family fought impossible odds against wealth and power that would crush most people. If you're fighting your own battle that seems unwinnable right now, give this video a thumbs up. Remember, sometimes the greatest courage isn't in winning, but in refusing to surrender when everything tells you to give up. The final hearing loomed just 10 days away when Ethan's phone rang at midnight. Rebecca Donovan's voice crackled with barely contained excitement. I need you and Madeline in my office tomorrow morning. First thing, I've found something. Sleep abandoned them both. Ethan and Madeline arrived at Rebecca's office before the receptionist. Finding their attorney surrounded by stacks of documents, her normally immaculate appearance rumpled from an apparent all-nighter. You remember I subpoenaed Maxwell Carlyle's personal effects? Rebecca pushed a laptop toward them. Everything was conveniently missing, according to the Carlyles, but I kept digging. One of Maxwell's college friends reached out yesterday. The man on the screen, Damon Webb, spoke directly into the camera from a Manhattan coffee shop. Maxwell knew his parents would try to control Theodore's future. That's why he made contingency plans. Madeline leaned forward. What kind of plans? Maxwell created a video will, Rebecca explained, opening another file, separate from his legal documents. Damon kept a copy in a safe deposit box with instructions to release it if the Carlyles ever fought for custody. The video loaded, revealing a younger version of the man whose photographs Ethan had seen in news articles. Maxwell Carlyle, handsome, confident, with Theodore's unmistakable blue eyes, sat in a sunlit apartment, his expression unusually serious. If you're watching this, I'm dead, and my parents are being exactly who I always knew they would be, Maxwell began. This is my addendum to my legal will, recorded 3 weeks before my scheduled sailing trip to Italy. For 12 minutes, Maxwell spoke directly to the camera, acknowledging Theodore as his son, expressing his love for Madeline, and explicitly stating his parents should have no role in his son's upbringing. My parents see people as assets or liabilities, Maxwell explained, his voice hardening. They'll try to mold Theodore into their image, cold, calculating, measuring human worth by dollar signs. I've directed my trustees to ensure Theodore inherits everything, but my parents should have no authority over his life or his fortune. The most damning segment came near the end. If my parents suddenly show interest in Theodore after ignoring his existence, it will only be because they want to control his inheritance. Don't let them use my son as their newest acquisition. When the video ended, silence filled the office. This changes everything, Rebecca said quietly. A direct statement of intent from Theodore's father, clearly expressing his wishes about the Carlyles' involvement. Will it be enough? Ethan asked. Rebecca's smile turned predatory. Not by itself, but combined with what else Damon provided. She spread photographs across her desk. Harrison Carlyle meeting with Judge Blackwell at a private club months before their case was assigned. Financial records showing payments from Carlyle subsidiaries to consulting firms owned by the judge's brother-in-law. This crosses from family court into potential criminal conspiracy, Rebecca explained. And I know exactly who needs to see it first. By afternoon, Catherine Moss, an investigative reporter known for exposing corporate corruption, had published the first article. By evening, 3 local news stations led with the story. By midnight, Maxwell's video had leaked online, generating hundreds of thousands of views. The narrative captivated people. A wealthy heir secretly protecting his child from his own corrupt family. A working mother fighting billionaires for her son. A small-town teacher mortgaging his home to help a child who wasn't even his. Justice for Theodore began trending locally, then nationally. Protesters gathered outside Carlyle Development Group headquarters, with signs reading, "Children aren't property," and "Love over money." The company's stock dropped 12 points in 2 trading days as investors questioned the ethics of leadership. Corporate sponsors began distancing themselves from Carlyle Charities. Victoria's prominent position on the symphony board suddenly became temporarily vacant. Judge Blackwell recused himself, citing personal reasons. The State Judicial Ethics Committee announced a review of his recent cases. The new judge, Eleanor Washington, a grandmother with 30 years of family court experience, ordered an emergency hearing. The court has reviewed disturbing evidence of potential judicial misconduct in this case, Judge Washington stated, her voice ringing through the suddenly silent courtroom. Pending full review, I am ordering Theodore Carlyle returned to his mother's custody immediately. Harrison rose to object, but his attorney grabbed his arm, whispering urgently. The Carlyle's once formidable legal team suddenly seemed subdued, exchanging worried glances. Furthermore, Judge Washington continued, all visitation with the paternal grandparents will be supervised until this court determines whether their actions constitute parental alienation. 4 hours later, a court officer escorted Theodore from the Carlyle estate. The boy ran across the courthouse parking lot, launching himself first into Madeline's arms, then Ethan's, his small body shaking with sobs. You kept your promise, Theodore whispered against Ethan's neck. Cross my heart. Lily, waiting in Rebecca's office, screamed with joy when Theodore appeared, tackling him in a hug that sent them both tumbling onto the carpet in a tangle of limbs and laughter. Home looked exactly as Theodore remembered. The worn sofa, the handmade bookshelves, the refrigerator covered with Lily's artwork. His bedroom remained untouched, dinosaurs standing guard on the shelves, solar system mobile hanging from the ceiling. That night, after pizza and ice cream and endless rounds of Theodore's favorite board game, Ethan tucked both children into Lily's bed, neither willing to be separated even for sleep. Everything's the same, Theodore marveled, fingering the familiar quilt. We've been waiting for you, Ethan replied simply. Later, when Madeline had fallen asleep on the couch, emotionally exhausted, Ethan found Theodore sitting on the back porch steps, the same spot where months earlier he'd asked if this was his home. Can't sleep, buddy? Ethan asked, settling beside him. Theodore looked up, his expression troubled in the porch light. Grandpa Harrison said I'm rich now, that I'll have houses and cars and everything I want. That's true, Ethan acknowledged. Your dad made sure you'd be taken care of. Theodore fidgeted with the hem of his pajamas, store-brand cotton that had replaced the silk monogram ones from the Carlyle estate. Can I still call this home, even though I'm rich? He asked, his voice small but serious. Grandpa said rich people don't live in houses like this. Ethan felt a surge of protectiveness toward this child who'd endured so much confusion. Theodore, listen to me. Being rich or poor has nothing to do with where home is. Home is where people love you exactly as you are. With dinosaurs and blanket forts? Especially with dinosaurs and blanket forts, Ethan confirmed. Theodore considered this, then nodded with the certainty only a 5-year-old could muster. I think my dad would like this home. He didn't like Grandpa's house much. He told me once. When did he tell you that? Ethan asked, surprised. In my dreams, Theodore said matter-of-factly. He visits sometimes. Ethan wrapped his arm around the boy's small shoulders, both of them gazing up at the stars. The millions waiting in trust funds seemed insignificant compared to this moment, a child finding his way back to belonging. Inside, Madeline watched them through the window, tears streaming silently down her face. Not tears of sadness, but of amazement at how fighting for what matters can sometimes create miracles from the most broken beginnings. The final custody hearing arrived on a bright June morning. The courthouse steps swarmed with media. Maxwell's video and the allegations against Judge Blackwell had transformed a private family matter into a public referendum on wealth, power, and what truly makes a family. Inside the courtroom, Theodore sat between his court-appointed guardian ad litem and Rebecca, answering Judge Washington's gentle questions with growing confidence. And how do you feel about living with your mother and the Winters family? The judge asked. Theodore considered this with the solemn deliberation of a child who had learned his words carried weight. It's where I belong. Can you tell me why you feel that way? Theodore glanced at Ethan and Lily in the gallery, then back to the judge. Mr. Ethan teaches me how to build things with my hands. Lily shows me constellations and how to make friends at school. Mom laughs there, and we make blanket forts on movie nights. Victoria Carlyle's barely audible scoff echoed through the hushed courtroom. Theodore turned toward his grandmother, his small face suddenly animated. Blanket forts are important, Grandma Victoria. They keep the monsters away and have special passwords. You never made one at your house. The ripple of unexpected laughter, even from Judge Washington, broke the courtroom tension. In that unscripted moment, the contrast between the Carlyles' cold opulence and the warm home Ethan and Madeline had created became startlingly clear. The proceedings continued for 3 more days. Expert witnesses, character testimonials, financial assessments. The Carlyles presented impressive educational plans and promises of cultural opportunities. Ethan and Madeline offered evidence of Theodore's improved emotional health, school performance, and social development in their care. On the final day, Harrison Carlyle made an unexpected request to address the court. Your Honor, he began, his customary authority diminished by weeks of public scrutiny. My wife and I have only wanted what's best for our grandson. Maxwell was our only child. Theodore is our only link to him. For the first time, genuine emotion cracked Harrison's polished veneer. We may have miscalculated the appropriate approach, but our desire to be part of Theodore's life is sincere. Judge Washington regarded him thoughtfully. Mr. Carlyle, this court doesn't question your love for your grandson, but love without respect for boundaries isn't love at all. It's control. Her ruling came the following morning. Primary custody would remain with Madeline, with Ethan officially designated as co-guardian, an unprecedented arrangement that recognized his vital role in Theodore's life. The Carlyles would receive monthly visitation, initially supervised. Most significantly, the management of Theodore's inheritance would be overseen by a trust committee, Madeline, Ethan, and an independent financial advisor appointed by the court, not the Carlyles. This child is fortunate to have financial security waiting in his future, Judge Washington stated, but his more immediate fortune is having multiple adults who care deeply about his welfare, albeit with different visions of what that entails. Outside the courthouse, reporters thrust microphones toward Harrison, who waved them off with uncharacteristic weariness. Victoria reached for Theodore's hand one last time before sliding into their waiting car. We'll see you soon, darling, she promised, her voice softer than Theodore had ever heard it. 2 weeks later, the Carlyles announced their extended sabbatical at their Swiss lakeside villa. The real reason emerged through business channels. Major shareholders had demanded Harrison step back during investigations into judge-related payments. The Carlyle empire, while not crumbling, was undergoing uncomfortable scrutiny. For Theodore, Madeline, Ethan, and Lily, life transformed gradually rather than overnight. The first major change came when Rebecca helped establish the trust fund management. At conservative growth rates, Theodore will have access to approximately $83 million on his 25th birthday, the financial advisor explained during their initial meeting. In the meantime, the trust provides for his education, health care, and reasonable living expenses. Define reasonable, Ethan requested warily. The subsequent conversation established clear boundaries. The trust would cover Theodore's education, including college, medical expenses beyond what insurance covered, and certain enrichment activities. Day-to-day living expenses remained Madeline and Ethan's responsibility, a division that preserved their parental authority while acknowledging Theodore's financial reality. Their first meaningful decision involved housing. The mortgage Ethan had taken to fund their legal battle had stretched his teacher's salary to the breaking point. We could move, Madeline suggested hesitantly one evening after the children were asleep. Nothing extravagant, but something without financial strain. Ethan's reluctance warred with practicality. This house held memories of Naomi, of the life they'd built, of the family they'd become. But the financial pressure was undeniable. The solution emerged unexpectedly through Theodore. During a trust committee meeting, the boy asked if he could help Mr. Ethan's house not be taken away. The advisor, after careful consultation with legal experts, determined that while the trust couldn't purchase a home for adults, it could ensure Theodore lived in a stable environment by paying off existing liens against the current residents, effectively eliminating Ethan's mortgage. The house stays Theodore's home, just without the financial burden, Rebecca explained. It's entirely appropriate under trust guidelines. Summer flowed into fall. Theodore and Lily started new school years, Still at public school, despite Victoria's mailed brochures for private academies, Madeline enrolled in business classes at the community college, preparing to eventually help Theodore understand his business holdings. Ethan continued teaching woodshop, though he established a small foundation funding arts education in underserved schools, modest philanthropy that reflected his values rather than the Carlyle approach to charitable giving. The house itself evolved, a sunroom addition where the family ate breakfast, watching Cardinals at the feeder Ethan and Theodore built together. A proper workshop replaced the converted garage. The ancient water heater and furnace gave way to energy-efficient models. Improvements, not replacements. One crisp November afternoon, Theodore returned from his monthly visit with the Carlyles carrying a small package. "Grandpa told me to give you this," he said, handing it to Ethan. Inside lay an antique woodworking tool, a hand plane from the 1800s, clearly a museum-quality collector's item. "He said you'd understand its value," Theodore explained, "because you make things that last." The gesture, imperfect but sincere, marked the beginning of a cautious détente. Harrison would never fully approve of Ethan, nor would Ethan entirely trust Harrison. But Theodore's future now included all of them, a complicated, sometimes awkward extended family connected by their love for one small boy. Christmas approached, their first peaceful one since Theodore had entered their lives. While preparing for bed, Theodore asked Ethan a question that revealed how deeply he'd absorbed the year's lessons. "My grandparents' house has everything, but nobody builds blanket forts or laughs at breakfast," he observed. "Why is that?" Ethan considered his answer carefully. "Some people collect beautiful things, but forget that the most valuable things can't be bought." "Like what?" Theodore pressed. "Like knowing someone will always come when you call at night? Like inside jokes that only make sense to your family? Like the feeling when someone loves you, not for what you have, but for exactly who you are?" Theodore nodded, satisfied. "That's why we're rich, even without my trust fund." "Exactly," Ethan agreed, tucking the blankets around him. "That's exactly right." 5 years passed like pages turning in a well-loved book. The Winters home had witnessed arguments and laughter, homework struggles, and holiday celebrations. The ordinary miracles of family life unfolding beneath its roof. On a perfect June evening, that same backyard transformed into something magical. String lights twinkled overhead like captured stars. Wooden benches crafted in Ethan's workshop lined a simple aisle created between blooming hydrangeas. 10-year-old Theodore adjusted his bow tie nervously as he stood beside Ethan under an arch woven with wildflowers. "You've got the rings?" Ethan asked quietly. Theodore patted his pocket with solemn importance. "Safe and sound." "I practiced the walk with Lily 15 times. Speaking of Lily, the 12-year-old appeared at the garden gate, her lavender dress matching the flowers in her carefully braided hair. She scattered rose petals with theatrical flair, winking at her brother as she took her place. When Madeline appeared, Ethan's composure finally broke. Her simple white dress caught the golden hour light, but it was her smile, open, radiant, unhaunted by old fears, that brought tears to his eyes. Mrs. Hoffman, now using a cane but determined to witness this day, dabbed at her eyes. "About time," she whispered to no one in particular. Naomi would approve. The ceremony itself was brief. The four of them had been a family long before any official pronouncement. When the justice of the peace invited Theodore and Lily forward for the final blessing, there wasn't a dry eye among their gathered friends. "By the power of love that created you," Ethan said, kneeling to meet the children at eye level, "and by the choice we all made to become family when the world gave us the chance, we are now, officially and forever, one family." Lily, ever dramatic, threw her arms around all three of them. "Took you long enough," she declared, prompting laughter through tears. Later, after the small reception ended and guests departed, Theodore approached Harrison and Victoria Carlyle, who had maintained their monthly visits faithfully, gradually earning a place in their grandson's complex life. "Thank you for coming," he said with the emerging confidence of a 10-year-old who knew exactly where he belonged in the world. Victoria adjusted his tie with affection. "We wouldn't have missed it." Harrison nodded toward Ethan, a gesture of acknowledgement, if not quite warm friendship. "Your father would be proud of the young man you're becoming." "Which one?" Theodore asked innocently. Harrison blinked, then offered a rare, genuine smile. Both of them, I suppose. That night, after Theodore and Lily finally succumbed to sleep, still arguing about who had performed their wedding duties more perfectly, Ethan and Madeline swayed together on the porch swing, wedding bands catching the moonlight. "You know what's funny?" Ethan murmured against her hair. "That night in the parking lot, I almost didn't knock on your window." Madeline looked up at him. "What made you do it?" Ethan considered this, remembering the fog car windows, the intuition that someone needed help. "I think some part of me recognized some part of you, even then. Like I was always meant to find you both." "My grandmother had a saying," Madeline replied softly. "The richest people are those who know exactly what they treasure." Above them, stars punctuated the velvet sky. Inside, two children dreamed beneath the roof that had sheltered their unlikely journey from strangers to family. Tomorrow would bring Theodore's piano lesson, a compromise with Victoria, and Lily's soccer practice. Ethan would teach his summer woodworking class while Madeline presented her business degree thesis. Ordinary moments in an extraordinary story, one that began with a simple knock on a car window and a choice to see another person's need as more important than convenience. In a world that often measures success in dollars and status, Ethan and Madeline had discovered the rarest fortune, a family built on choice rather than chance, on love that sees beyond circumstances to the best in each other. And Theodore, the reluctant heir to millions, found his true inheritance in that modest craftsman house. The knowledge that real wealth isn't what you have, but who walks